got a new dinghy. So as you guys who have been following along, especially on our social media accounts, know, we are already back on Long Island in real time. But when we were in Florida, we got a new dinghy. And recently, one of our fellow YouTubers sailing Zingaro, James and Kimmy, asked us you right over there, Jetty? They asked us our opinion on dinghies in general, because they're looking at getting a new dinghy or building one or something. So they kind of just wanted to know our thoughts. And they are posting a live stream about it recently, so check it out if you get a chance. We'll link in the description. But their questions kind of got us thinking about our dinghy, new and old, and what we've noticed about inflatable dinghies and what we like about them, what we don't like, what we wanted different in one. We just wanted to come up with some things that might help other people with the same sort of questions, people who are looking for an inflatable dinghy for themselves.
In the past year, we've owned 3 different kinds of inflatable dinghies.
And through our experience with these 3 dinghies, we kind of came up with a list of 5 major things to consider if you're thinking about getting an inflatable dinghy.
Those 5 are size, shape, material, weight, and features. I messed up my counter. So first one, size. Size is totally personal preference, whatever you're going to be doing. Are you going to be going long distances? Are you just going to use it to go to shore? Do you have a dog you have to bring? Are you going to go fishing off of it? We went bigger because we go fishing, spearing, bring the dog everywhere. We have a lot of stuff that we bring. But some people, all they have to do is go from the boat to the dock, and that's all they need. The bigger you have, more carrying capacity. You can go a little bit faster. Smaller, it's going to be lighter, but you don't have as much room. So with size, the bigger it is, obviously it's going to be more expensive. Smaller, you're going to be cheaper on the price range. And then with that brings us into our next category, which is materials.
Materials. So when we're talking materials, we're talking about 2 things. The tube material and also the hull material. So let's talk about the tube material first.
You have Hapalon and you have PVC.
So Hapalon's going to be more expensive, but way better in the sun. It's going to hold up to UV a million times better than PVC. PVC is definitely going to be cheaper, but it's not going to hold up in the sun very long. If you're considering cruising the Bahamas, the Caribbean, I would say that Hypalon is definitely really the only option if you're looking long term.
But if you're in other areas where the sun isn't as strong as down south, then you can save a couple bucks and go PVC route.
Maybe if you're in the Northeast like where we are now, you're only using the dinghy seasonally, it's only in the sun 2-3 months out of the year, you'll get a long life out of PVC still, especially if you keep it covered. And they even make chaps, these like covers that go, they just kind of cover all around the tubes of the dinghy. So if you have chaps on, you might be able to make that dinghy last actually pretty long if it's PVC, and especially if it's Hypalon.
Besides the tube material, we also have to consider the hull material.
So the hull material can be the same rubber tube material, just laid down in the hull with slats as like the floor supports, or even a removable floor that's made out of wood or aluminum. The bottom can also be just an inflated floor, like a high pressure inflated rubber bottom material, where there's not even any slats, it's just high pressure kind of keeping it semi-rigid. You can have a solid fiberglass hull, or you can have a solid aluminum hull. I'm sure there's other options out there, but those are the major ones.
Now aluminum, fiberglass, and the inflatable hull.
Yeah, the inflatable floor with, it actually did have some thin wood slats to keep it a little more rigid. Obviously with those first things, whether it's a high pressure inflated floor or an inflatable floor with slats, or even an inflatable hull with sections, removable sections, those are all going to be semi-rigid, and they can range from it feeling like you're stepping on an waterbed to pretty close to rigid.
Solid.
Pretty rigid. We didn't like the one we had.
The other thing with that, you have to worry about beaching the boat. If you're ever on, let's say, a beach with rocks or barnacles or whatever, you could pop that extremely easy. Compared to the hard, rigid floor, you have more sturdiness.
We're talking about a solid fiberglass or aluminum hull. You definitely have
the ability to give yourself a little bit more leeway if you do run up on a rock or a barnacle.
Or some coral or something. Now our last dinghy was solid fiberglass. This one is solid aluminum, and that's part of the reasons that we kind of changed it up and got an aluminum boat, and that's because of the light weight that you get with aluminum while still having a lot of strength. Fiberglass definitely gonna be a little bit heavier, but it might be a little easier to repair if you ever put a hole in it or something, because you probably have fiberglass supplies on your boat. With an aluminum hull, you can probably do a makeshift repair with epoxy, I'm sure. But for a permanent repair, you probably need someone to weld on something to that aluminum. But it's going to be harder to puncture an aluminum hull. If you just put a scratch in it, that's not a big deal. It can be much more durable being pulled up on a beach with rocks or coral or whatever. So you're probably not going to put a hole in an aluminum hull. Weight. So weight is kind of a combination of a few things, including the hull material, the size, and even features that you have on the boat. Obviously, those first hull materials that we talked about, the slats and the inflatable floor, are going to be the lightest. Solid aluminum's going to be the next heavier one, and then solid fiberglass is probably going to be your heaviest boat, but all depending on size and the features that you have in it. Hey, no barking.
Weight is very important for us specifically because our boat is completely dependent on weight. The lighter it is, the faster it goes. So when we raise the dinghy and put it on the boat, we want it to be as light as possible so it's easy to get up, but also so we keep the weight down so we go faster. If you have a whole system like a crane that lifts the dinghy on the boat and you don't have to worry about lifting it yourself and you're on a trawler, then it doesn't matter as much.
Hence why we towed a 16-foot waterlogged Boston whaler around with us behind our trawler for 2 years. That kind of brings us into our next category, which is features, because the more features you have, generally the more weight you're gonna have. So features can range from anything from just a seat to some fancy electronics, a center console, a bench seat and built in the back, a little radar arch.
We went for simple the better.
Yeah, we went pretty simple. Now, that first inflatable that we talked about was like 9 feet, inflatable floor, had nothing on it, no features. The last one we had a little like cooler seat right there, and it actually had a battery in it for this motor. This motor we just switched onto this one, as well as a small anchor locker. To save some weight, when we transferred all our stuff to this boat, we didn't put that cooler seat in it.
Which means we have no more battery, so now I have to pull the cord.
Sierra wasn't too happy about that, but it's a freaking big 50-pound lead-acid car battery, and you can just pull the cord, it's fine. So a lot of features that most dinghies have are like handholds all over, these D-rings, some D-rings under the front of the boat for towing, or locks with these aluminum oars, which we're gonna have to test out. I actually tested them out on the other dinghy to see if you can actually row it. Supposedly it's pretty hard to row an inflatable boat, especially if there's any sort of breeze. Whatever, that'll be a different video. But those are a lot of features that most dinghies do have.
Our old dinghy, the bench seat was like in the middle, and then under the bench seat we kept the gas tank, so it was still out of the way, but taking up kind of floor space. Now we have a separate locker for the gas tank, as well as a separate locker for the anchor. Now under the bench seat we have the space for our life jackets.
Now that's vented here, and the fuel line actually runs underneath the floor all the way back to the engine, so that fuel line's not in the way ever. And then here's the anchor locker. Come here, Marlon.
Come on, you good. Good boy.
There we go. And it's separated by this material with elastic bands on it too.
One more thing.
One thing that we didn't have on our other dinghy that is amazing is just this simple little slot for the line to come out, so that when you're anchored, you'll have your anchor line tied to the boat, but most of your extra line is still in here. So it's nice to have this. The line can come out and you can still close this, oh, excuse me, Jetty, without breaking the hinges or anything on that hatch. Another great thing about these two compartments that we were surprised to find out is how easy it is to step from here to here to here to the front of the boat to the back of our catamaran. That was a really nice surprise.
And then one other thing that I love, and I think Jetty likes too, is that we have this soft kind of non-skid material on the boat, so she has something that doesn't like hurt her paws, and we don't slip as much.
One last major feature I want to talk about is having, I don't know what you call it, a floor. Having a floor over just the bottom of your boat is the bilge. But this is our actual floor, and underneath here is just space. So you can see if we get water in the boat, the water fills up underneath this floor first, because there's like holes, you know, in the corners and in the anchor locker and stuff like that. And that way, if you have just a little bit of water in your boat, it's going to sit in the bilge, in the floor, and your feet aren't going to get wet. All your stuff is going to get wet. And even if you have a little sand, it'll sit right there, kind of underneath the floor.
So like, if our phone fell on the ground, it's not sitting in water, or the cameras, or whatever.
But it's definitely a little bit of extra weight. It's definitely a little bit of extra money, but it's a feature that I really like, and it's definitely worth it for us. Something to think about. Well, as I mentioned before, some other features you're going to have is like a whole console here to steer with a steering wheel and a steering system and everything, besides just a tiller. It'll have a throttle, you can have bow lights, stern lights, you could have bilge pumps, batteries, everything, radio.
With all those extra features comes weight, which is our most important thing that we're trying to limit.
Right along with price. One of the things we forgot to talk to you guys about is shape. Now, we always say shape, we mean kind of mostly hull shape. Would you agree?
Number 4, shape.
So the wider the hull, the more stable it's going to be. The more of a deep V you have in the hull, the more it's going to cut through the water. If it's wide and flat, it's going to pound a lot in rougher water, but it'll be really stable, especially in calm water. If it's got a deep V, it's going to slice right through that choppy water, but then when you step on the sides of the boat where that deep V is, it's going to tilt a little until the tubes hit the water, and then it'll stop and be stable from there. A little bit of a balance there. This definitely has a deeper V than our other boat, and we can definitely feel that slicing through the chop a little bit more. So I hope the things we talked about really helps you guys if you're thinking about buying a dinghy. It's just 5 major things to consider. I'm sure there are a lot more that we missed, but those, I would say, are the 5 most important things. And along with each of those things, price has to do with it.
And preference, personal preference, depending on what kind of main boat you're on and what you're going, where you're going, and what you're doing.
If we missed anything super important, let us know in the comments below. Let us know if you have any questions, or let us know if we even missed anything minor that might be important to your particular circumstance. So the boat we're on right now is a Highfield CL 360, Classic 360. It's 11 feet, not
9 inches.
It's like 11 feet, 10 inches long, aluminum hull. And so if you guys are interested in something like this boat, I'll put the link in the description. Check out Sailing Zingaro's live stream about talking about the dinghy that they're going to get. I don't think they're going to get an inflatable, so it'll be just some good perspective to kind of hear.
About the different types of dinghies.
They're pretty entertaining too. Those guys are so funny.
And they have the same kind of boat as us.
Crowther, yes. Crowther Spindrift.
Hi, Jeremy. What are you doing? We're watching.
Yeah! you guys haven't had a chance yet, check out the Tula shop. We have some cool t-shirts on there. Definitely some really cool products coming soon as well. And if you want to kind of keep up to date with us, like
real time, check out our Instagram, because we post stuff like the new products, we take polls, what kind of stuff you guys like, pictures of what we're doing now, stories of working on the boat, everything real time, up to date, so you're not 4 months behind.
And those handles will be right in the description. Tula's Endless Summer Sierra, Tula's Endless Summer,
Jetty the Gypsy.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Next time we'll continue with our chronological
order of where we are. Going up the coast, we went, I can't tell you, we did our longest sail overnight, and we ended up somewhere.
So stay tuned. We'll hopefully get that video out to you soon.